Okay, let's get into it. We are doing a deep dive today into a whole set of sources you sent over, all focusing on your web app project. That's digicomcaf.com, specifically how you built it and ran it on the Replit platform.
That's right. And our goal here is really to uh, go through that material you shared, get a good handle on the technical core of your site, a full stack website, and understand how that differs from, say, a simple static site.
Yeah, and crucially, we want to explore your experience with Replit. You mentioned ups and downs, right?
Exactly. Especially those issues you flagged with data structure problems and even data loss.
So we're using your notes, your experience, to paint a clear picture of what makes your site work, the tech choices, and the real-world bumps you hit along the way.
So first things first, let's break down what you actually built. You mentioned, not being a programmer and wanting to learn the terms, which is great. Think of it like maybe building a complex machine rather than just a simple signpost.
Good way to put it. Your sources mention the core programming languages used, kind of the raw materials.
Exactly. At the heart of it, you're using JavaScript, and specifically TypeScript. JavaScript is sort of the main language making things happen online.
Right.
And TypeScript adds, let's say, extra rules and labels, making the code safer and easier to organize, especially for bigger projects. It helps catch errors early.
Okay. Then there's HTML. That's like the skeleton, right? It defines the structure, the headings, the paragraphs, where buttons go.
Perfect. And CSS, that's the style guide. Colors, fonts, layout, making it all look good.
Gotcha. So moving on to what the user actually sees and clicks on. That's the front end.
Yeah, the user interface. And for that, you chose React. React is like using prefabricated sections to build the interface. Makes it really dynamic and responsive.
So things can update on the page without a full reload.
Precisely. And your notes also mention Vite. That helps bundle everything up and get it to the user's browser really fast.
And Tailways CSS for styling. Sounds like a shortcut for a professional look.
It is, yeah. It provides lots of pre-made style components and with handles moving between different pages or sections within your app.
Okay, so that's the visible part. Now let's go behind the scenes to the back end, the engine room.
Right. This is where Node.js comes in. It basically lets you run that same JavaScript language, but on the server, not just in the user's browser. It powers the core logic.
And you used Express with Node.js?
Yeah, Express acts like a traffic controller on the server. It manages incoming requests from users, like clicking a button or loading a page, and figures out how the server should respond. It organizes the back-end work.
Makes sense. Now, every complex app needs to store information somewhere, persistently, the database.
And you opted for PostgreSQL. That's a really powerful industry standard database. It's where all your content lives, the podcast episodes, the blog posts, user data maybe. It's the site's long-term memory.
Okay, and Drizzle ORM, what role does that play?
Drizzle ORM is like a helpful translator. It lets your JavaScript code interact with the PostgreSQL database more easily without you having to write raw, complex database commands directly. It simplifies data handling.
So it bridges the gap between your app's logic and the database storage.
Exactly. Makes development smoother and less error-prone.
Now, beyond these core parts, your sources highlight some really interesting special features you built in. This is where it gets quite advanced, it seems.
It really does. The Perplexity AI integration sounds fascinating. Your material describes it as an AI assistant that helps with research, generates content ideas, drafts posts, even creates outlines.
That sounds like a massive productivity boost, almost like having a content co-author.
Absolutely. Automated content creation. Then you also implemented an authentication system. Looks like you used Replit's built-in tools for secure login logout, probably for an admin area.
Yeah, makes sense. And audio management, obviously crucial for handling the podcast files themselves.
Right. And another really impressive feature mentioned is content scheduling, an automation engine described as automatically generating and publishing new content, like a new blog post every day at 7 a.m. you mentioned.
Wow. Okay, so the site keeps itself fresh automatically.
That's the idea. Plus email integration via SendGrid, probably for things like user notifications or contact forms.
And the platform tying all this together, hosting and running it, was Replit.
Yep, serving as both the development environment and the deployment platform.
So if we step back and look at all these pieces, the front end, back end, database, AI, automation, it's clear. Based on your sources, you built a full stack web application, not just a simple website.
Oh, definitely. It's a complete system handling, user interaction, server logic, data persistence, and complex automated tasks. Your sources even call it a professional grade setup.
And that distinction is really important, isn't it, compared to a static site?
Absolutely critical. A static site is just, pre-made files sent to the browser, no back-end logic running, no database dynamically serving content, no user logins in the same way, no AI generating posts. Your app is way more complex and capable.
Okay, so we have this picture of a sophisticated, well-architected application, but then your sources pivot to your actual experience running it, and this is where the Replit discussion comes in.
Right. You specifically wanted to talk about, and I quote from your notes, the pros and cons of the Replit AI agent platform for building a full-stack website and the differences between that and a simple static website.
And we've established it's definitely the complex, full-stack kind, which, as you said, sets the stage for understanding your experience.
And your sources get right to the point, mentioning the core problem. Issues that I have had with Replit screwing up my data structure for my blog posts and audio podcasts.
Yeah, that sounds frustrating. You described it as many ups and downs using the platform.
hmm And the real kicker, the thing that seemed to cause the most significant problems, according to your notes, was data loss at redeployment, losing content when you pushed updates.
Ouch. That's serious for a content site.
It really is. And it ultimately led you to, as you put it, just gave up and canceled your subscription and asked for a refund.
Okay, so here's the really interesting tension that your own materials highlight. On one side, you've built this app with PostgreSQL and Drizzle ORM, tools often chosen for reliability. Your notes even mention the architecture aimed for fault tolerance and had data backups ensure nothing is lost. The design intended to protect data.
Exactly. The components you chose are generally known for data integrity. PostgreSQL is solid, and ORM helps manage things properly. The design should have been robust against data loss.
But then, your lived experience on the Replit platform was, well, the opposite in a critical way. You encountered significant repeated data loss, specifically during that crucial deployment step.
Right. So the big question becomes, how does an application, seemingly designed with data safety in mind, end up suffering data loss when run on a specific platform?
It suggests the platform itself plays a huge role, doesn't it? Beyond just the code you write.
It absolutely does. The hosting environment isn't just a neutral box. How Replit, in this case, handles things like database connections during a deployment, how it manages persistent storage, how its specific infrastructure works. All of that can interact with your application in unexpected ways.
So even if your code and database setup were technically sound, something about the platform's deployment process or infrastructure seems to have undermined that data safety.
That seems to be what your experience points towards, yes. It highlights that the platform's implementation details really matter, especially for stateful applications that rely on persistent data. A glitch in how the platform handles restarts or updates could, theoretically, cause issues even for well-designed apps.
It really drives home that building the code is only one part of the puzzle. Where and how you run it is just as critical for reliability. It sounds like you had a powerful app design, but the operational reality on the chosen platform presented major hurdles.
Precisely. It's the whole lifecycle development, deployment, ongoing operation, and the platform touches all of it.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, looking at everything you shared, you clearly put together a very impressive piece of technology for the ham radio world, a sophisticated full stack application way beyond a basic website with AI, automation, the works.
Yeah, the architecture described sounds quite advanced, really showing some enterprise-level thinking about things like managing data, scalability, and automation.
But, and this is the crucial takeaway from your experience, even with that robust design aimed at protecting your content, your journey with the hosting platform Replit was rocky. You encountered significant challenges, specifically citing that data loss during deployment.
Which ultimately led you to move away from the platform. It's a powerful reminder that building these digital tools, which is increasingly part of modern radio operation, involves navigating these real-world platform complexities. It's not always smooth sailing from code to a stable live application.
Definitely. So, considering the sophistication of your app's design built for data integrity and contrasting that with the platform reliability issues and data loss you actually faced, it leaves us and you with a really important question to ponder. When you're building these complex data-heavy sites, what specific features or characteristics of a hosting platform should be top priority to really ensure that data stays safe and the user experience is solid? How much does that platform infrastructure and its deployment mechanics truly weigh against just having well-written code?